ask the Ukrainians to help them cheat an election.
Trump tweets video of Chinese professors claiming that Beijing can swing U.S. policy because it has people at the top of America's core inner circle of power, in clip that has been deleted from social media in China. China deletes the clip? That kind of gives some credence to it. Now, I'm not going to dive too deeply into this because it's a really long article. I'll post the links for this one and the next one because that one's long as well. This kind of stuff is a little bit above my pay grade, and I'm sure there's people out there that give it full analysis, but I just wanted to put this story out there, kind of talk about it a little bit if you weren't familiar, just so you can get the basics and kind of follow up on it for yourself. Di Dongsheng, a professor at Renmin University in Beijing, appeared on a Chinese television show about Wall Street and international trade last month. The video was deleted from Chinese social media soon after being uploaded, but copies were made, which have since been circulating on YouTube. Professor D, or maybe that's Dai, we'll just call him Professor D, stated how China had people at the top of America's core inner circle of power and influence for years. D said the relationship was true for decades until President Trump came along. Now we have to stop on that for a second because, again, cynical nature being what it is, this guy could have an agenda. So keep that in mind. He could be a pro-Trump guy. He could be somebody, I don't know, I'm just speculating. So we really have to take this with a grain of salt when we hear these kind of things. We want substantiation. If he's claiming that he has people or knowledge of people in America's inner circle of power, and we've seen professors at universities getting arrested for this kind of stuff, but if he's claiming this, then we're going to need names. Right? We need names. We just can't assume just because he's saying, oh, well, Trump this, Trump that it's favorable for Trump. We can't assume, right? We want to dig deeper. He also notes how the Obama administration was easy to manipulate. D believes old ties between China and the U.S. will be restored once Beijing Biden is in the White House. And I think that's kind of what everybody assumes. That's why he's China Joe and Beijing Biden. Excerpts from the video were tweeted by President Trump on Monday night after Tucker Carlson shared a clip on his show. So again, there you go. You see, obviously it's pro-Trump, so he'll want to put this out there. Again, we have to dig deeper, and other people will likely dig deeper into this. I'm just going to scratch the surface here because I really think this kind of insight is beyond the level of exploration I could give it to give a great analysis. But let's dig a little bit more because it leads to my next story. In the video, Professor D suggests that China has managed to influence American policies for decades through a special undercover network of old friends who are at the highest levels of the U.S. government and financial institutions. And I think this much you and I understand, right? You and I, anybody watching this video, most likely doesn't have communist ties or ties to the Chinese government. That sweet communist cash isn't flowing our way because who are we? We're just normal folks, right? We're just out here doing the 9-to-5 thing, trying to make a living. But I think that we know that with the level of corruption, obviously on the Chinese side, but within our own government, things that we'd never be privy to, but I'm sure we know exist because we get every now and then get a little leak of it, a little trickle, that it's not beyond believability. That tons of individuals within the U.S., probably thousands, tens of thousands, and government and high-level institutions, not just financial institutions, but Silicon Valley, they're taking money either off the books or in the forms of kind of however they're able to manipulate campaign contributions and make those look legal. Speculation, I don't know. I'm not doing a deep dive here, but you and I know what's up. D notes that everything changed the moment the Trump administration came to power, although D said he was unable to give specific details without compromising the identities of those involved. See, and that's what we want. We need the identities of those involved. He revealed how President Trump's trade war with China caused huge upset over ties that had been nurtured for decades between Washington and Beijing. Trump waged a trade war with us. Why couldn't we handle him? Why is it that between 1992 and 2016, we always resolved issues with the U.S.? Did you guys know? Dee asked the Chinese audience in his 18-minute long presentation. Now, I'm going to drop a bomb. Because we had people up there, inside America's inner circle of power. We had our friends, said Dee, noting that he needed to speak carefully so as to not reveal the identities of those involved. And that's what I was just saying, right? And that's what we want. We need the identities in order to believe it. I think that we all know that our government sells us out, that our businesses sell us out, that our multinationals sell us out, that our financial institutions sell us out. Anything for a buck, right? As we know, we've seen it at the university level. It hasn't been that much, but it hasn't been that many stories that we've heard about it. But it doesn't always come in the form of a briefcase of cash. I'll just say that. And fostering goodwill between America and China. Beijing Biden, ready to get that money printer going again so he can start collecting, him and Hunter. In plain and simple language, during the last 3 to 4 decades, we used the core circle inside America's real power, Dee said. Wall Street had a very profound influence over America's domestic and foreign affairs since the 1970s. We used to rely heavily on them. But the professor claims that after Trump was elected in 2016, Wall Street couldn't control Trump because awkwardly, there was a soft breach of contract between them, which made them hostile towards each other. That's true. During the US-China trade war, they tried to help, Mr. D said. My friends in the US told me that they tried to help, but they couldn't. We want names. On to the next one. Check this story out. You're going to love this one. And again, it won't be a surprise. How a Chinese spy slept with 2 mayors and targeted politicians, including one of the youngest members of the House and Tulsi Gabbard, before suddenly leaving the US when she realized the FBI were onto her. Fang Fang, or Christine Fang, was reportedly a Chinese intelligence operative with China's Ministry of State Security. She remained in California's Bay Area from 2011 to 2015, which, for those of you, if you're not familiar with that, I'm sure most of you are, but definitely would be the best place for her. She could definitely blend in because the population is really diverse in that sense. A lot of Asians all throughout the Bay Area, so she definitely picked the right place to go to, where she would just blend in easily. And with the number of offices held by Asians in that area, be a good place to start networking, kind of work her way up and everything like that. So in that regard, she picked the right place to start. Fang reportedly used campaign fundraising, networking, her charm, and romantic relationships to get close with politicians. She helped Rep. Eric Fartwell fundraise for his re-election campaign and had interacted with him at several events and probably interacted with him after several events as well. I'm just speculating, of course. Fang also helped Tulsi Gabbard fundraise and became well known by California's political scene. She reportedly had a romantic sexual relationship with 2 Midwestern elected officials. There you see her right there with Fartwell. Fang's suspected operations ended during the Obama administration when she fled the U.S. amid a FBI counterintelligence probe. They first discovered Fang while reportedly surveilling a different person. Axios noted that the investigation provided another look into Beijing's efforts to influence U.S. political groups, and that goes back to the previous story, what Professor D was talking about. Concerns about Beijing's influence in the U.S. has troubled the Trump administration and will likely continue into the Biden administration. Will those concerns really continue, or will Beijing Biden do what he's been doing? There she is right there. If I were, a little bit older, say I was like an ugly turd like these guys, if I were some Midwestern elected official and I were older, 50s or 60s, and this person started hitting on me, I might be flattered. If I was in my 50s or 60s. Friends and acquaintances of Fang said she was in her late 20s to early 30s when she enrolled in Cal State University East Bay. Axios reports that she served as president of both the Chinese Student Association and Asian Pacific Islander American Public Affairs. That is a long acronym right there. Fang reportedly used those positions to initially get her foot in the door with local political circles. She would invite lawmakers, political executives, and Chinese consular officials to attend a series of prominent events she hosted. Through a combination of fundraising, charisma, and romantic relationships, Fang managed to place herself among Bay Area politicos. And when I was just thinking about this right now, the romantic side of it, so much easier for a female spy. See, females, you might complain about the patriarchy and all that, so this is going out to all those female spies out there, whether you be from China, Russia, North Korea, somehow you snuck in. Female spies out there, I know you're watching my videos, you're going to give me a thumbs up, which I appreciate, but see how much easier it is for you? You can just throw that pee out there, and these old turds will gladly take it, and they'll be talking, they'll just start blabbing some pillow talk. Ladies, female spies, you have it easy. Male spies, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Am I going to have to try to bag Hillary Clinton? I try to bag Pelosi? Come on now. If some guy came over and were a spy, would you really think trying to bag Clinton or Pelosi is worth the money you get paid from whatever government? It's trying to get secrets? No. Female spies, you have it so much easier. Many of Fang's alleged operations were done under the guise of the APA, a group promoting civic affairs for Asian Pacific Islanders, sources told Axios, and Tulsi emerged as a mainstay in Bay Area politics. Sources told Axios that some of Fang's first known political contacts in the U.S. included former Fremont Mayor Bill Harrison, Rep. Judy Chu, and Fartwell. There you see a photo here. There's a lot more attractive looking girls in this lineup, but fortunately they weren't spies. Maybe. Here she is with Rep. Judy Chu, it says. In fact, a scroll through Fang's Facebook page reportedly showed she was friends with Swalwell's father and brother. Their relationship began when Fartwell was a council member for Dublin City, California, and their earliest known interaction was facilitated through the Chinese Student Association. Fartwell would later become a congressman. In 2012, Fang portrayed herself to be the connector between the Asian American community and members of Congress. A source told Axios that Fang served as a bundler during Fartwell's 2014 Congress re-election campaign on his behalf, meaning she convinced others to donate to his campaign operations. And that's what I talked about in my previous story. It doesn't always come in the form of a briefcase of cash, like you might see in the Americans, like in a 60s or 70s or 80s type Russian-American Cold War spying back and forth thing. Now it's a lot easier to be discreet since technology's advanced. It doesn't come in the form of a briefcase of cash. As I said, however, I'm sure that I would speculate that possibly Fartwell and these other individuals that she was working with would take that briefcase of cash plus those other fringe benefits she provides under the guise of her influencing them policy-wise in any kind of way. It's an ideal position for an intelligent position. I just thought of that. I was imagining her in different positions. It's an ideal position for an intelligence operative to hold, considering it could strengthen their ties to the campaigning official. During this time, Fang reportedly facilitated potential intern assignments for Fartwell's office, including one placed in Washington, D.C. But around 2015, a counterintelligence probe became so unnerved by Fang's behavior that they alerted Fartwell with a defense briefing from the FBI. The congressman immediately halted any contact with Fang, a current intelligence officer told Axios. He has not been accused of any wrongdoing, and I bet that he is so happy that that is the case, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit if at some point in the future we found out he cashed in big time and he tapped. His office provided a statement to Axios. Rep. Fartwell long ago provided information about this person whom he met more than 8 years ago and whom he hasn't seen in nearly 6 years to the FBI. To protect information that might be classified, he will not participate in your story. During her time in the U.S., Fang also helped with a fundraiser for Rep. Tulsi Gabbard in 2014 per a flyer advertising the event on Facebook. A spokesperson for Gabbard's office told Axios she has no recollection of ever meeting or talking with her, nor any recollection of her playing a major role at the fundraiser. Similarly, Fang also volunteers to campaign, perhaps that should say volunteered, to campaign for Rep. Ro Khanna in 2014 bid for 2014 Congress. He was later elected in 2016. Khanna's office told Axios he remembers seeing Fang at a number of Indian American political get-togethers, but the two never spoke. Interesting that he remembers her. She's not really that memorable, in my opinion. His office added that Khanna was not briefed on Fang by the FBI and that her name does not appear in their staffing records. They noted that not records did not include all of volunteers' names. I guess maybe that should just say they noted that records did not include all volunteers' names. Okay, got it. There she is. Is that, and we have here, this is a photo with her and Ro Khanna, and he's saying that they never spoke. Yeah, so you would take a photo with somebody you never spoke to? That's what it says here. I don't know. I assume they're saying that's him. Don't know what he looks like. That's interesting that you would take a photo with somebody that you claim to have never spoken with. Let's read a little bit more. We'll cut it off there. Like I said, this stuff is really something you need a deep dive on, so we're just kind of giving the overview here. It says here, amid her alleged operations, Fang branched out to other U.S. cities and attended conferences as a way to further her network. Fang engaged in a sexual or romantic relationship with at least 2 Midwestern mayors over a period of 3 years, and at least 2 of those interactions with the politicians was caught on by the FBI during their surveillance of her. Nice. Do we get some names? Nice. We need names. During a political conference in 2014, an unidentified older mayor from an obscure city called Fang his girlfriend and reportedly insisted they were in a relationship. And that's what I said. If I were some older mayor out in the middle of nowhere and some mediocre-ish young girl started hitting on me, we'll call her what? What would we call her? A 3 out of 10? Call her a 3 out of 10? If a 3 came on to me and I was in my 50s or 60s, yeah, I'd be excited. I'd be like, what the heck? Fang allegedly had a sexual encounter with an Ohio mayor in a car that was being surveilled by the FBI. Woo. When the mayor asked why Fang was interested in him, she responded that she wanted to get better at speaking English. And he's like, okay, baby, I'll help you. Meanwhile, U.S. authorities discovered through surveillance that she often visited the Chinese consulate in San Francisco. All right, we'll cut it off there. It goes on a little bit further. I'll leave it up on the screen if you want to pause it and read a little bit more. And again, I'll link these last 2 articles below in the comments section. Though this stuff is way beyond my pay grade, as I said, it's something that, as I said, we only get a trickle of. Something that I'm sure is a lot more prevalent than we even know about. And that's kind of stating the obvious, but I would be willing to bet that if we even knew a tenth of the level of corruption that occurred at all levels of our government and financial institutions, companies like I alluded to earlier, that we'd have ourselves questioning how it is that these individuals claim to be proud of, to be an American. How could you be proud to be an American when you're out there selling out your country just for some of that Chinese moolah? I think that's all I'm going to say on that topic. I think I've kind of gone off on a little bit of a rant a little bit earlier, but this stuff is not surprising. It's discouraging, and it just shows you the level of influence that can be bought and paid for, and how easily individuals can be manipulated just for a few dollars. How easily individuals would be willing to sell out this country, Beijing, Biden, that we think these individuals are looking out for our best interests, that we elect them to look out for our best interests, but they're out here doing this kind of stuff. And how do we put a stop to it? Until people start getting punished, until we weed out corruption at all levels, we're going to continue to be sold down the river. So we'll see what happens if Biden gets in January, and we'll see how things start to change with China and more jobs and more of our money and wealth and influence gets sold out to China. All right, everybody. Depressing one for sure. Let me know what you think. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching.